If you like what I do, consider joining my channel or donating to my coffee. Links in the description.
So hot. Want to touch the hiney.
Sometimes a game grabs your attention, and you're not quite sure what it is about it that has you so enthralled. Night Castle is one of those games. At first glance, it looks pretty basic. A clean but generic 90s anime art style, a retro pixel art aesthetic that's everywhere in the indie scene, and a title that sounds like it was pulled from a random name generator. Night Castle. It doesn't exactly scream originality. And yet, here I am, talking about it. I didn't realize it at first, but all those seemingly plain elements combined into a perfect storm of nostalgia I wasn't ready for. Before I knew it, Night Castle had me completely hooked. I didn't put this game down until I completed it. I just loved it that much. So, what's Night Castle even about? You play as a paladin named Enoch, sent to investigate a tragic incident on the Empire's frontier. With help from Sister Rebecca and the church, he ventures into a castle twisted into another world, searching for the fate of 4 missing knights and their lord. The hook? Enoch has 30 days to figure out what the hell is going on. Literally. And if he doesn't, game over. Now I know what you're thinking. Ugh, I hate games with time limits. Normally, I'd agree. But Night Castle's timer isn't just tolerable, it's actually engaging. And more importantly, it's not as strict as it sounds. I'll break it down in detail later, but for now, don't let the clock scare you off. I got the true ending in 22 in-game days, giving me 8 days to spare. As long as you stay focused, there's plenty of wiggle room. So yeah, don't let the time limit keep you from a fantastic game. And with that preamble out of the way, let's dive into the review and see if this haunted speedrun is worth your time.
Combat.
There are 2 things you should know about Night Castle's combat. 1, it's simple, and 2, it's NES hard. No frills, no combos, no flashy cancels. Just tight timing and brutal consequences for messing up. And by consequences, I mean death kicks you back to your last save. There's no autosaving here. If you die after grabbing something, you'll have to retrace your steps and reacquire everything. It's rough, but not too rough. In fact, you can use the lack of autosave like a time machine. Go scout an area, die, and revert to your last save. Sure, you'll lose your map coverage, but the knowledge you gained, that's yours to keep. The game can't take that away from you. Alright, let's get into the actual combat. In a word, it's stiff. Attacks are deliberate, and their animations offer little grace. Once you commit, especially in the air, you're locked in. Aerial control feels pretty good, but attacking in midair comes with serious drawbacks. For starters, good luck double jumping or doing anything after swinging. Attack animations cancel all other actions until you touch the ground. And if you land mid-swing, your attack gets canceled too. Movement across the board is strict, clearly aiming for that NES era feel. And to its credit, Night Castle nails it. Now, I know calling a game's controls stiff might sound like a slight, but that's only true if the game isn't designed around that stiffness. Night Castle absolutely is. Enemy behavior is tuned to match your limitations, so the challenge feels fair, not frustrating. There's definitely a learning curve, but once you get over that initial bump, the controls start to feel, dare I say, pretty dang good. Obviously, your mileage may vary depending on how tolerant you are of that old school feel. Personally, I grew up in the NES era and long for games that move and feel like this, so I genuinely enjoyed this aspect of its design. There's some jank to contend with, sure, but I'll save that for the next section. For now, I want to talk about killing demons. Enoch starts with a sword and eventually amasses an arsenal of devil-destroying devices of demonic devastation. A great sword that's frankly too slow to be useful, throwing knives that are surprisingly effective, and a bow that's almost too OP for its own good. Each weapon comes with its own pros and cons, so experimentation is encouraged and often rewarded. My only quibble, I wish I could cycle through the weapons on the fly instead of diving into the menu every time. It's not a deal breaker, but a quick swap option would have gone a long way in keeping the combat flow buttery smooth. And like a true paladin, Enoch's greatest strength comes from his unwavering faith in our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. In one hand, he wields a blade, and in the other, the Word of God. Throughout the investigation, you'll find Bibles that function as magic spells. Some are offensive, like a pillar of light that decimates everything above and below you. Others are supportive, like the absolutely essential healing spell. Each spell costs mana, or spirit, to cast, and spirit regenerates over time, so feel free to sling spells as often as you like. The only catch is casting time. You'll need to equip a spell in one of 4 slots. Hold the cast button, and when the meter fills, press a direction on the D-pad to unleash it. Overall, I love this magic system. It was essential to my survival. Normally, I ignore magic in games where proper stabbing solves most problems. But trust me, you're going to want to become a part-time spellcaster here. Especially in the early game when enemy positioning places you at a disadvantage and the only way to equalize things is a quick miracle from the King of Kings. Spells and weapons start out weak, but there are ways to level them up. I'll cover all that in the progression section. When it comes to the game's enemies, we've also got to talk about the in-game timer. Each day starts at 7 a.m. or hour 7, and time progresses as you explore. There are 3 phases to every day: day, night, and midnight, and which phase you're in determines what enemies you'll face. During the day, you'll encounter the weakest foes. At night, stronger enemies take their place. And at midnight, well, I'll let you discover that for yourself. Let's just say the nuns strongly advise against going out after dark. So you can imagine what horrors await during the witching hour. These phases make exploration genuinely tense. Do you keep pushing forward at night when enemies get stronger, or play it safe and return to the hub? After all, dying means retracing all your steps. Do you really want to redo everything just because you got greedy and explored a little too far? But you have to explore a little. You're on a schedule. Burn too many half days, and you'll run out of time. This is the kind of pressure you're constantly juggling in Night Castle, and I love it. The tension never lets up, and every inch you gain feels earned. Unless you die before making it back to the hub. Then it's back to square one. The risk-reward loop is just too addicting. I'll wrap this section up by talking about the bosses. Overall, they're well designed and fun to fight, when they work properly. I ran into a few issues. One boss became unresponsive, and another had an easily exploitable sweet spot where I could wail on it without fear of retaliation. I've flagged these bugs for the dev, and I suspect they'll be patched by the time this review goes live. The dev's been working hard at tightening things up, which you'll love to see. As for the bosses themselves, I liked them. They're tough, with layered attack patterns that take time to learn, so don't be discouraged if they flatten you a few times. And since the game has a leveling system, you can grind to make things easier. But grinding eats up precious time, and when every day counts, you gotta weigh every second. That's it for combat. Night Castle's combat is stiff, punishing, and unapologetically old school. But because these design choices are intentional, combat feels deeply rewarding. Between the deliberate weapon feel, the strategic spellcasting, and the ever-ticking clock, every encounter demands focus and intention. It's not always smooth, and it's not without its quirks, but when you're locked in, blade in one hand, Bible in the other, it's hard not to feel the righteous thrill of a well-earned victory.
Abilities, platforming.
Night Castle plays it pretty safe in the abilities department. All upgrades are tied to zodiac stones hidden throughout the castle. One might grant you a dash, another a double jump. When it comes to traversal, there's not a single move here you haven't seen before. But that doesn't mean finding a zodiac stone isn't exciting. These stones unlock a mix of passive and active abilities. The movement tools are standard Metroidvania fare, sure, but some of the support abilities are surprisingly useful, and a few even impact the story. As for the platforming, This is where most of the jank lives. To be clear, I'd say 90% of the time platforming's mechanically fine. The issues tend to pop up when you input commands too quickly. I've already mentioned how attacking in the air basically ends your aerial trip, but sometimes the double jump just didn't register when I pressed the button. It was never a huge issue since the game rarely demands fast, precise platforming, but when the double jump failed to trigger, it was noticeable. I think it had something to do with the rhythm of my inputs. It also happened if I hit my head on something, but that seems fair. Dashing felt a little off sometimes too. You've got a stamina bar, and when it's full, you can dash with iframes, which is both very nice and very necessary for platforming and enemy encounters. But for some reason, the dash wouldn't always trigger even when the bar looked full. And that might be the crux of this issue. The bar only looked full. If that's the case, a clearer indicator of its fullness would have been helpful. Or maybe it's just a me thing. You'll have to let me know in the comments. One very interesting aspect of platforming is that Night Castle doesn't just have coyote time, it has extreme coyote time. If you're unfamiliar, coyote time is a common platforming term for the little grace period devs give you when jumping off of a ledge. It lets your character leap even after they've technically stepped off an edge. It's named after Wile E. Coyote, who could defy gravity until he looked down. So there. Don't say I never taught you anything. In Night Castle, Enoch's coyote time is wildly generous. Walk off a ledge, and you can trigger your jump whenever you feel like it. It defies all physics, but I assume it's just one of the many perks he gets for having strong faith in the Lord. And once you unlock the ability to dash off ledges, it gets even more ridiculous. The best part? I'm almost certain this is intentional. I had to use this technique to progress in a few areas. Whether it's a design choice or a holy glitch, it's freaking fun to pull off. As far as biomes and their gimmicks go, I don't want to spoil too much. Just know there are multiple unique zones, each with their own hazard types and traversal quirks. On the puzzle side, Night Castle is all about unlocking shortcuts, activating devices to open gates, and figuring out how your weapons can help you progress. Nothing here is brain busting, but the ever-looming threat of nightfall and the constant pressure of your limited time will keep you on your toes as you look for optimal routes to unlock to save your precious time. That's it for this section. Night Castle sticks to the standard Metroidvania blueprint when it comes to movement and abilities, but it executes the fundamentals with charm and just enough holy jank to keep things interesting. Between the Zodiac Stones, the generous and possibly divine Coyote Time, and the ever-ticking clock, traversal becomes a tense, strategic dance. It's not always smooth, but when it works, and it's a blast to break the castle wide open, one shortcut at a time.
Progression.
Night Castle's progression system might be my favorite mechanic in the game. It's all about souls, you dig? Enoch collects souls from defeated enemies and uses them to gain levels and power up his weapons and spells. It's a familiar system we've seen in plenty of games, but Night Castle adds a few clever twists. For starters, Enoch can only carry so many souls. If you max out halfway through the day, you've got a choice to make. Keep adventuring even though you won't earn any more souls, or cut your run short and return to the hub, or church, to spend what you've got. It's a classic risk-reward dilemma, and it adds a surprising amount of tension to your daily routine. The next twist comes with leveling up Enoch. To gain a level, he has to stay at the end while holding max souls. But staying at the end advances the game by 1 day. So it should be the very last thing you do if you want to make the most of your time. But here's the catch. Leveling up requires max souls, which means you won't be able to spend any souls on other enhancements that day, and you won't have any souls in the morning to spend on enhancements tomorrow. So you might be thinking, why not upgrade my weapons and Bibles first, then go grind for some more souls to max out for my end stay? Well, that brings us to the third twist. Something happens during the witching hour, and enemies stop dropping souls. In other words, you've only got so much daylight to farm. Spend it wisely. That's it for progression. As you can see, the soul economy comes with a lot of decision making. Between collecting souls, spending them wisely, and managing your time, Night Castle becomes a game of resource management. Thankfully, souls and time are the only things you're juggling. But even that's a tall order when every second counts.
Exploration.
Night Castle's exploration is pretty darn satisfying, thanks to its constant pressure and gratifying tension release loop. You're always asking yourself, how far can I push into the castle before midnight? When should I turn back to the church before the witching hour hits? These decisions shape both your short-term survival and your long-term mission. It's a constant tug of war between greed, caution, urgency, and mindfulness. And that makes every step feel dangerous, exciting, meaningful, and fun. Now, I know some players might be put off by the in-game time limit, but as I promised in this video's intro, it's really not that bad. I won't pretend it's nothing, because if it was nothing, why include it? What I will say is that it's far more forgiving than you'd expect. Let's talk about the game's save system. You can only save at the inn in the church, so you'll need to account for those runbacks during your daily excursions. And while staying at the inn progresses the game by 1 day, there's also a rest option that saves your game and tops off your HP without advancing time. So if you want to spend the day exploring and the night farming tougher enemies for souls, you can safely do that by resting at the inn. Just rest right before nightfall and then go out and start farming. And if you die against these tougher enemies, well, you just reload your save right before nightfall. You don't have to do the entire day over again. There's also the transmission function, this game's version of fast travel. Scattered throughout the castle are several churches, and once you purify a couple, you can use transmission to travel between them. It's a massive time saver. Honestly, there's nothing more relieving than stumbling across an empty church. Every new one you purify becomes a fast travel point and a new base of operations as you push deeper into the castle. Now, these churches aren't just handed to you. Rebecca, your nun pal with the, divine curvature, has to purify them first. This kicks off a tower defense style minigame where Enoch must protect her from waves of demons as she cleanses the church of its evil aura. I loved these sections, not only because they broke up the pacing nicely, but because earning a new fast travel point afterward always felt incredibly rewarding. So there you go. With transmission between churches and all the shortcuts you can unlock, hopefully it's clear that the game's time limit isn't as harsh as it seems. But remember, it's never not nothing. You still have to keep an eye on it, or time will slip away and you'll hit a game over before you know it. Now that we understand the time limit gimmick, what exactly can you collect during your investigations? Well, Enoch can find lost compatriots who take up shop at churches. He can find red and blue herbs that increase his HP and spirit respectively. He can discover zodiac stones, some optional, some required to progress, that grant active and passive abilities. Bosses drop new weapons upon defeat, and golden elixirs boost your stamina. And there are multiple Bibles that Enoch can find, and by Bibles, I mean magic spells. That might not sound like a lot, but every item you find in Night Castle is impactful. Each one feels like a genuine upgrade, and that makes every discovery exciting. Remember, this game is NES hard. You're gonna need all the help you can get if you want to survive. There's much more I could cite to showcase how excellent Night Castle's exploration is, but the less I say, the better. Spoilers and all that, yeah? I'll just say this. Night Castle nails that feeling of poking around somewhere you probably shouldn't be, like there's something bigger lurking just beneath the surface. And I'll leave it at that. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you already know. That feeling during exploration, it's my favorite. As for the game's non-linearity, I'd say it's pretty non-linear. There's utility gating that divides the castle into sections, sure, but those sections are fairly open-ended with multiple paths to explore. And by the end game, you'll be revisiting plenty of areas in your pursuit of the truth. I'll wrap this section with a quick look at the map. It looks pretty basic, but it's highly functional, automatically labeling points of interest as you discover them. See this moon icon? That means that door only opens at night. And there are daytime equivalents too. I do wish I could mark things up myself. The map doesn't track herbs or zodiac stones, but overall, it gets the job done. And that's it for exploration. Night Castle's exploration loop strikes an excellent balance. Tense but rewarding, structured but free. The time limit adds pressure without suffocating the player, and smart systems like transmission and resting keep the pace flowing. With every shortcut unlocked and every new church purified, the game builds a rhythm of risk and relief that makes pushing deeper into the castle irresistible. It's challenging, deliberate, and immensely satisfying. Exactly how good exploration should feel.
Atmosphere. Narrative.
By now, you probably get the gist of Night Castle's atmosphere. Gothic chic, splashed with 90s anime character designs, soaked in an old-school gaming aesthetic with a heavy dose of constant tension. It's moody, stylish, and unapologetically retro, and I love it. One of the game's coolest aesthetic features is how environments change depending on the time of day. During the day, things are bright and airy. Then as night approaches, that brightness gives way to torchlight and lower visibility. And when midnight hits, well, things get pretty frickin' dark and creepy. Enemy designs are appropriately creepy and or charming, but there's not a huge variety. And honestly, I think that's intentional. Instead of dozens of enemy types, Night Castle leans into variants, palette swaps with new movesets and behaviors. It works because these variants reflect how the castle's evil is escalating over time, like whatever's behind it all is growing stronger by the day. And it checks out. Enemies do get tougher as time passes. Using evolving variants instead of constantly introducing new enemy types is a smart move. It reinforces the game's themes, subtly conveys that whatever's lurking at the heart of the castle is growing stronger, and using that strength to empower its minions, and it builds a real sense of mounting dread. It's a design choice I genuinely appreciate. As far as sound design goes, it mostly fits the game's moody, gothic tone. But then the boss theme kicks in, and it goes unnecessarily hard. This sounds like something straight out of Broforce, which is one of my favorite games of all time, by the way. This boss theme is absolutely incredible for no reason. That said, as epic as these tracks are, they don't loop properly. The music will just awkwardly fade out mid-battle, only to explode back in a few seconds later. Silly? Yes. Amazing? Also yes. When it comes to the narrative, it's Metroidvania minimalism done right. You've got environmental storytelling, pre-boss banter, and optional hub character chatter. The plot isn't deep, nor was it ever meant to be. It's just enough to keep things moving and interesting, and by the time the credits roll, you'll understand everything that transpired. The story does what it needs to do, and for a retro-inspired MV, that's exactly the right move. The game does have multiple endings, and unlocking them comes down to whether you uncover the truth before the 30-day deadline. If all 30 days pass, the investigation ends and everyone goes home. But if you discover what's really going on inside the castle, you'll get the intended ending, one that shifts slightly depending on an action you make during your run. So, there's technically a path to the true ending, but it's really just you getting to play the whole game before the 30-day time limit is up. And that's it for this section. Night Castle's atmosphere, enemy design, sound, and story all serve one purpose: to keep you immersed, uneasy, and curious. It's a game that does a lot with a little, leaning into style, tension, and thematic cohesion over spectacle. Whether it's the escalating enemy variants, the absurdly epic boss music, or the minimalist narrative that quietly builds to something bigger, everything here feels deliberate.
Final thoughts and score.
Night Castle is rough around the edges, but every bit of that roughness feels handcrafted. It's a punishing, old-school Metroidvania that knows exactly what it wants to be: tense, methodical, and unapologetically retro. The stiff combat, deliberate movement, and time limit mechanics won't be for everyone, but for players who crave that NES-style challenge wrapped in gothic atmosphere, this game absolutely delivers. There's a little jank and some bugs that the dev is ironing out, but none of these issues are game-breaking, and I'm confident these will get smoothed out sooner rather than later. I award Night Castle a 7.5 out of 10. Night Castle is available on PC. I played the game exclusively on Steam Deck with 0 issues, and therefore give it a Steam Deck rating of verified.
Pair placement.
Between its satisfying exploration, clever progression system, unique day-night cycle, and thematic cohesion, Night Castle carves out a distinct identity in the modern Metroidvania scene. There are a lot of interesting mechanics at play here that kept me hooked, and I couldn't get enough of the game's many risk-reward and tension relief loops. Night Castle is the reason I made this channel, to showcase amazing Metroidvanias that might get overlooked in the sea of Metroidvanias we're all floating in. And there's no two ways about it, Night Castle is an amazing Metroidvania. Night Castle purifies the A tier. If you're a Metroidvania fan, skipping this one would be a disservice. I can see how its timer and reliance on retro gaming philosophies and methods might not jive with everyone, and that's fair. But if you consider yourself a true Metroidvanier, I'd encourage you to step out of your comfort zone and give Night Castle a shot. It just might be your next hidden gem.